Carry chair, we are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It is Wednesday, October 12th, 2022. This is the regular weekly public business meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners, being conducted in person in the Commissioners Conference Room on the ground floor of the courthouse, and also being live streamed on YouTube and recorded for later rebroadcast. All three commissioners are present today. That constitutes a quorum. We do have one proclamation today, but I think our presenter isn't here quite yet. That she told us she might be a few minutes late. So let's jump down to the adoption of the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or items we've discussed and vetted at previous meetings. Is there anything any commissioner or staff would like to highlight or remove from the consent calendar for separate action?
Well, actually, I do have a question. So G4, proclaiming intent to participate in the Great Oregon Shakeout and work toward
Yes.
becoming a safer community. I didn't know if that was maybe supposed to be under recognition proclamation. I see the sheriff's office.
My apologies, that did not make it off the final agenda draft. That will be for next week.
Okay, so we are removing,
Okay.
we're removing G4.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, I didn't know if you guys were here to present that, so I guess we're doing that next week. Okay. That's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion for approval of the consent calendar with that one deletion noted?
I'll move for approval of the consent calendar, removing item G4.
I'll
as
second.
Presented.
I will second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the deletion of item G4. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. It is approved. We don't have a public hearing or any decision action items today. So we will move down to our first discussion item, which is approval to formulate draft work plan to implement the master plan for the Lincoln County Commons. And Tim Johnson, our county administrator, will present on this.
Chair, Commissioners, Tim Johnson, County Administrator. 2 weeks ago, we had a workshop on the Commons Master Plan, and it was identified the positive opportunities that the commission has taken over the years to bring forth the ability to be able to initiate that effort. With that, we identified that we would come back for your approval or direction on formulation of a work plan to identify next steps and get your approval upon completing this work plan, and then in a draft form, and then working through with you that work plan and making sure it fulfills the requirements of the commission. We do not see any financial cost associated with it. It'll be absorbed by county staff and our multidisciplinary team that we take forward that we're using right now, for example, on the animal shelter. With that, I'll take any questions or directions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson?
None at this time.
I don't have any questions. I guess I probably will have questions when we formulate the plan, but for right now, I'm just approving you to make the plan. I don't have any questions.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. This is our logical next step, and I'm glad after many years of discussion, a variety of circumstances have intervened during the years, and really until we passed the 2016 ballot measure, we didn't have an adequate basis for funding this project. Now we do. Now some money's built up. I think we have some great opportunities here. So I'd certainly be in support of providing Mr. Johnson with this approval as well. Are we comfortable with a vote today, or would you like to finalize it next week?
Yeah, well, our normal process is to discuss and then
I agree.
finalize
Okay.
next week. So let's do that.
Consent or decision?
I'm fine with consent. It seems
Okay,
like we have
good.
consent.
Consent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put it on consent for next week.
I guess
you.
I'll ask a clarifying question. The transient lodging tax or transient room tax, whichever you prefer to call it, provides some support for this plan, but the plan involves expenditures that could exceed the support that comes merely from the transient room tax.
How do we know that? That's what the work plan is, probably to provide what resources that we have that we will forecast out.
All right, that answers my question. Thank
So-
you.
That I think is, yeah.
All right. So we will move that to consent for next week. Next item, if Mr. Kenyon would come forward, request declaring road department equipment surplus.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Roy Kenyon, Lincoln County Public Works Director, and I'm here today to request that the board declare surplus two pieces of equipment that are no longer going to be in use for the road department. Usually, I think this is more of a consent calendar item, but I thought, it would be a good opportunity to kind of give a very short, brief status of where we're at with our equipment, road department, kind of what our plans are going forward, where we've been. The two pieces that we replaced, just basically an equipment trailer and a brush chipper. Not huge expenditures, but unfortunately with the supply chain issues, it took us a year and a half to get the chipper in. We ordered it one budget year, had to carry over, and finally received it on a second budget year. The trailer was a purchase of opportunity. We were conversating with General Trailer in Eugene about availability. They happened to have just built one, and we were first in line, so we acted quickly to pick that up. But going forward, we are, let's say, in the bubble of additional revenue with the passage of the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill. There was a renewal of the Secure Rural Schools Act that gave us additional revenue for 3 years. I see it as a bubble of revenue, and I'm taking advantage of that bubble to make some additional equipment purchases, knowing full well that depending on multiple things, that at some point in time, that revenue stream is going to drop back down to basically the
Whose phone is that?
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay,
We're in a little bit of a revenue bubble because of several issues. I basically try to purchase new equipment whenever we have unexpected revenue. We're kind of in that bubble right now. As of right now, we do have a brush cutter that has been ordered. My assumption is it's going to take 2 budget cycles to get that thing here. And so everybody's having the exact same issue. I mean, it's not just equipment, it's pretty much everything across the board. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And even if we do have kind of an end of the bubble and we kind of go back to what used to be our current revenue stream, I think we are in good shape with our fleet. Like I said, we've been pretty active in trying to cycle things out long before they're actually dead and buried. Well, and the other thing is, here on the coast, anything sitting out like our trucks and our graders and our loaders do, they're subject to that marine air. And over in central and eastern Oregon, you could have a tractor that would last you 50 years and it sit out behind the barn. Over here, if it sits out behind the barn, you get 10 years out of it. So that's kind of the things that we deal with. And so anyway, I think that overall, our equipment, our fleet is in good shape. I'm doing my best to try to keep it there. And with the idea that we try to purchase at least something every budget year.
okay. Any questions for Mr. Kenyon?
No questions, but I was just going to say 23 years out of the trailer and 19 years out of the chipper is a pretty long life
Mhm.
and I'm sure it had a pretty hard life too, and doing that work. So
they
that's
do. This is actually, since I've been here, we've gone through 4 chippers. So we do get some life out of them.
Yeah, great.
I think it's Good decision.
Okay, so is everybody good with moving this forward to consent calendar next week?
Fine with me.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
Mr. Kenyon.
Thank you.
All right, we move on to commissioner reports. Wait a minute, I think our presenter for the
Yes.
proclamation is here.
Yeah,
Amber,
Amber's.
come on up, please. And while she's making her way forward, I will read the proclamation recognizing October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lincoln County. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy and dignity, security and humanity due to systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and or abuse. And whereas domestic and sexual violence crosses all social groups, but people who are women, transgender, LGBTQ, poor or working class, native, of color, immigrant, non-English speaking, disabled, young, elderly, or otherwise marginalized, not only shoulder the burdens of oppression, but also experience high rates of domestic violence. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting the health and wellness of individuals and society as a whole here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. And whereas preventing interpersonal violence is not only possible, but is our collective responsibility, and prevention requires significant changes to our social norms regarding gender roles, strength, sexuality, relationships, and the normalization of violence. And whereas a coalition of organizations has emerged to directly confront this crisis, advocates and those involved with shelters and hotline services, law enforcement officials, healthcare providers, the clergy, and other concerned individuals are helping in the efforts to end domestic violence. Now, therefore, in recognition of the important work done by My Sister's Place, the Let's Care Program, Lincoln County District Attorney, and the Lincoln County Domestic Violence Council, the members of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lincoln County. And we urge all citizens to work with these invaluable community agencies to help alleviate this problem in our community. And Amber, if you'd introduce yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's good to see all of you again. Thanks for rearranging me. I had the nice thing about being over Zoom is that you can do multiple meetings.
Oh, yeah.
You have to go
Yep.
one part of the county to the next. It's a little crazy. I am so excited to be here today to see you guys in person. I don't think I've actually, I think it was 2019 was the last time I saw you guys in person for DVAM, but we have some
And
exciting.
Amber, if you'd give your name and title, please. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. My name is Amber Wishoff. I'm with My Sister's Place, also known as My Safe Place.
Okay.
So the reason that I'm here, as the proclamation did start us off with, is that I am one of many groups of people who support survivors in our county. And this month is a nationally recognized month for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Next week, we actually are launching into a week of action, also a nationwide thing that we have some exciting things going on for. There is, as part of the Lincoln County Domestic and Sexual Violence Council, we're going to be doing a campaign called Shine a Light on Domestic Violence, where people can purchase purple lights for either in strand form or in light bulb. And then that comes with a poster that with the lights, these are $5. That in English and Spanish talks about how we shine a light in our community about standing with survivors and bringing awareness to this. So we invite all of you can go onto our Facebook page for more information about that, and yard signs and other things. And we have an exciting thing tomorrow, our Silent Witness Stand. It's been an annual event that will be at JC Market. This year they have donated their space to us, and also Domino's is providing some lunch. So that goes from noon until 3, and we'll be outside with signs and things, just raising awareness and really showing our community that we are here to support survivors, and the council will be represented at that as well. And
And that was tomorrow, you said?
that is tomorrow.
Okay.
That's correct, from 12 to 3 o'clock. So we welcome anyone to come and join us. Check out our Facebook page for other updates and exciting things that are going on. The month is a chance to share with the community that this is such a prevalent epidemic that is happening. If it was, just to give a little bit of an idea, during COVID and from 2019 calls on our hotline versus 2020, we saw a 95% increase in calls. In the next year, in 2021, we saw a 50% increase from that 2019 date. But what we also saw was the complexity of the calls and the increase of the lethality. This is not just something that we talk about in October, obviously, and that we do work in, but this is a great time to invite other people to get engaged and to find out how we can support. I really believe that there's a way, if someone feels a spark or call to help in any direction, in anything that is needed in our community, that there's a way to do it within their capacity. We always need volunteers on our board, and we're looking to start doing volunteers on our hotline as well, other places, or whether it's just promoting information and education from Facebook pages, or we have a bottle drop account as well. And so just collect bottles and drop them off. There's so many ways within your own circle of influence to get involved. So we invite you to stand with us, and we appreciate your time in dedicating this month for the commissioners to domestic violence.
Thank you. Those statistics are pretty startling and alarming of the increase in cases in 2020, 2021. Wondering what you attribute that to, and the pandemic, other factors?
Yeah, what we know is statistically any time that you have a natural disaster or something on that nature occurs, so we're looking at the pandemic and so the fires, then you see an increase. And when everyone was asked to stay home because of safety, but home wasn't a safe place to be, then that creates complex trauma, complex problems. And so our reaction to that was, I suppose action was, whenever we did get a call, to not just answer the question that people were asking when they called us, but maybe that it's a neighbor calling for someone else. What do I do? We wanted to really dig in deeper and ask more questions and offer more resources, because that might be the only time we got a hold of anybody. So we wanted to do what we could. So we tried to dig in deeper.
Okay. Other questions from my fellow commissioners?
Yeah,
Comments?
Yeah, you said that 95% increase you saw in 2020 and the 50% increase you saw in 2021, that also the complexity of the calls, was more difficult. Is that kind of what you were getting to, just with asking more questions, or kind of what made the complexity of those calls different, I guess?
I think that you started to see burnout fatigue. Like you saw that, I know I felt it myself, that okay, this isn't a great situation that we're in, but it's going to get better. And then when you're seeing year 2 and things aren't getting better, and things got a little bit more complicated, housing got more complicated, just so many different factors, the type of calls were more lethal. We actually had to change our safety class. It's a class that we don't mandate, the court mandates if you want to drop a restraining order or protective order. And so to do that, you need to take a class with us. We changed the class because we were seeing an increase in strangulations and other types of calls. And so what that helped us do was absorb that information and shift what we were putting out and those resources, because what we heard back from victims' assistants and even from our own calls is that people were deciding after hearing that to not drop those restraining orders and protective orders. And because, strangulation specifically, if you shingled by your partner one time, your chance that that person will take your life the next time goes up 700%. That's information we need to put in people's hands. And so that's the type of thing I'm saying, is that we saw the need to take deeper action, and luckily we are in such a great community that we don't take that action alone. There's so many people involved in doing what they can within their circle of influence to spread information, get those seeds that we can plant. We don't know when someone is going to flourish with the information that's given, but we want to get that out there, and our partners are really great at helping us do that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So this may be a difficult question, but are there activities or organizations that seem to be more effective in fighting this tragic situation? I mean, where does there seem to be the most benefit or positive change?
I think that any place that engages in information and engages in sharing information can be impactful. And so I know in the past there have been campaigns where training was offered to like the tourist industry. And so bartenders were getting more information about how to spot trafficking or risks of people at increased risk of sexual assault. And so there was involvement there. And so I really believe that any area can be impactful. It's just about connecting and getting information and tailoring that information to the people that you're seeing.
The other thing is, I'll comment that I think as this proclamation notes in its first paragraph, violence can take many forms, and as is identified in the proclamation, it can be physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, or economic control or abuse. And I think oftentimes you just think of the domestic violence between two partners, but there's far more that can be unfortunately part of that problem.
Yeah.
And I think we've had this proclamation sadly before us as many years as I've been a commissioner. It doesn't speak well of our society, but keep up the good work.
Well, thank you for your support and your thoughtful questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Are we
Thank
ready
you.
for a motion now to adopt the proclamation?
I'll move for approval of the proclamation proclaiming October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lincoln County.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks very much. Okay, now we'll jump down to commissioner reports. The one thing I might share is that last Wednesday, Commissioner Jacobson and I talked about the proposal that was going to go before the Housing Stability Council on Friday to allocate funds for fire housing recovery to 3 counties, including $2 million to Lincoln County. And, I'm chair of that council and happy to report that on Friday, we unanimously approved that allocation. And they talked about, certainly this was an attempt to better balance funding to the counties in proportion to the actual impact and need, but also there was kudos for our long-term recovery group and its work in laying the foundations for opportunities like this.
Happy dance. Yeah.
Good work.
So now we're just kind of waiting for a contract so we can get our $2 million and start hopefully buying some property to further be developed in wildfire housing. So thanks for your work on that.
Well, thanks for yours.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hunt, anything?
I'll just report that I participated in the Lincoln County Economic Alliance Board meeting last Thursday, and there was considerable discussion about the county's economic development community improvement grant program. I've already had some conversations with Administrator Johnson. general areas of concern. And these are things that we as a board have talked about off and on over the last couple of years at least. And I think the process and the focus of the grant program continues to evolve in an effort to best utilize the funds that are available and have the most meaningful impact on our communities. But the areas that were looked at and will continue to be addressed, I think, as we move forward. And I've asked Administrator Johnson to work with the Executive Director, Paul Schutema, in resolving these issues or questions, but they involve the application and what specific information may or may not be required. The process for approval, the timing for approval. Historically, the Alliance Board has met the first week in December to approve, to review the grant applications and to provide a list of recommendations to our board. That may or may not be a date that continues to be viable or practical. Questions concerning the amount of money that's available. It is ARPA funds, but, some of it may be ARPA funds added to it. Traditionally, the money has come from the transient room tax funds for economic development. So those are some areas that continue to evolve in an effort to make this program as effective as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jacobson, what
Yeah,
else have you got?
I had one thing I just wanted to say, which is a thank you to the Lincoln County 4-H Fun Days After School program that meets at the Lincoln County Commons 3 days a week after school. And on their own kind of accord, they went around, all the kids went around and picked up many bags of trash from the Lincoln County Commons, which was really great. So we sent them a thank you card from all three of us saying thanks for picking up the facility. And we personally bought them some Halloween candy as well for the kids as a thank you. So big thanks to them.
Let's give credit where credit's due. Commissioner Jacobson wrote the thank you card and
I did.
enabled the other two commissioners to add their signature. So.
And
thank
I
you
bought
for
the
that.
Halloween candy, but that's okay.
No, thank you for all
Well,
of
you know,
that.
let's be transparent.
Well,
here.
thanks, Commissioner.
It's Mutual Admiration Society Day,
Oh,
which is nice.
Yeah.
All right,
Uh,
that's it from me.
Okay, we move on to reports. Lincoln County Health and Human Services 2020-2024 Strategic Plan. Final report. Come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Jane Romero and I work as the Health and Human Services Director for the county.
Susan Traxel, Executive Assistant, Health and Human Services.
And we are here to formally close out the strategic plan that was developed for the County Health and Human Services Department for the years 20 through 24. And as you'll see, as we go through the process, a lot of the objectives that were initially outlined in this plan have either been addressed intentionally or organically. And because our world has changed in many ways because of the pandemic, we find that this plan is really no longer serving us. And I'm not a person who likes to have a plan put in place and then just sort of let it kind of drift off into the nether world. So we wanted to formally close it, issue a report, and then move on. So Susan is here because she was here when the plan was developed. I was not, but my understanding is that in 2019, a wide-reaching net was cast to gain input from a lot of stakeholders, staff, community partners. There were listening sessions that was facilitated by Dusty Linnell, Dr. Dusty Linnell, who from the from OSU Extension Office, and the effort resulted in 5 priority areas. So next slide.
Do you have the slides?
Yes. No, those are not the slides.
They are, if you go to our HHS page, they're on there. But
I sent them to look like that.
It's the second from bottom.
That's the report. Oh, it is. Okay, very good. So, oh, next one. So 5 priority areas were identified through the process, and they're listed here. Enhance health services, strengthen public relations, foster a healthy workforce, improve the physical environment, and optimize financial health. You can go to that next slide. And so strategies were identified for each of the priority areas. So for the enhanced health services priority area, strategies included increasing access to care, making sure services provided were culturally competent, providing training for staff to up their game relative to equity and inclusion, stabilize staffing, look for opportunities to integrate our services and expand our locations. And I'm just gonna, for each of these, highlight a few examples of our achievements. There is a report, and for example, you can see on here, there are a lot of achievements, but we wanted to keep this to a minimum for you today. So achievements that we would highlight would include the fact that we opened the Waldport Clinic on September 7th was the day that it actually opened. We had the open house on the 1st, yeah. We've received funding for the purchase of a mobile health clinic, and we're in the process of putting a bid advertisement together. And as I think everybody knows, we are working to renovate the Ninth Street building so that we can move our 1010 clinic to that location for greater visibility, greater access, integration with behavioral health. Next slide. Another priority was to strengthen our public relations, our relationship with the community. And so we wanted to increase awareness of the work that we do. We wanted to do a better job of connecting with our community partners. And we wanted to collaborate more with our community. And again, the next slide. No. Yeah, these are our achievements. Next slide. And I don't know, Susan, considering you've taken the lead in our public relations efforts, would you like to share these?
So one of the things that we did was we created a public information officer position. I filled that role part-time during the pandemic, but we are now recruiting for a full-time position very soon. I think it'll be posted this week. We increased our public health social media following about 10 times, I believe, thanks to the pandemic, and we've continued that on, and we'll be working on increasing that even more for our other departments. We implemented multiple translation interpretation contracts. Before the pandemic, we had a hit or miss. It was hit or miss whether we could get things translated or not. Now we have a few contracts in place. Our goal is to translate everything that goes out in Spanish and then provide ASL or American Sign Language interpretation or any other languages when needed. We've developed really good relationships with local and regional media from here all the way up to the Portland area. We even had an article in a publication out of Colorado during the pandemic. So those relationships will carry on to future goals that we have for our health center, for developmental disability programs, et cetera.
If I may add on the translation and interpretation issue, we have had an opportunity to work collaboratively with the Human Resources Department to actually be able to get a compensation stipend in place for staff who are qualified and or certified translators so that we have them in our clinics.
And then the last one is the strengthening the collaboration with community partners. Again, the pandemic really forced a lot of this to be done quickly. So that was good for us. Amber was here earlier. She was actually part of our Joint Information Center. So that's an example of a community program that jumped in during the pandemic. And now we've got all of those relationships built. We also were able to connect with Oregon State University Extension and Olala Center and Centro de Ayuda. We've created a monthly group that still meets about issues that are Latino AX people need and how we can better communicate to them and make sure they get the information. So that partnership continues and is very strong today.
Next slide. another priority is to foster a healthy workforce. Towards that end, we were we created actually committees for each of these priority areas because of the pandemic, 4 of them fell away. One continued, the Workforce Development Committee, and they are wrapping up their work now. We basically stood up telework and remote work. We had to, actually, because of the pandemic. But as we have moved more into an endemic situation with COVID, we continue to have hybrid work schedules. So not all of our staff, obviously our primary care staff have to be present in the office in the clinics, but the rest of our staff actually have the opportunity to have a hybrid work schedule. So they can work in the office several days a week. They can work remotely as well. This works in terms of creating a healthy work balance for our staff, but it's also advantageous to our clients because many of them prefer a remote appointment. And for anybody who prefers an in-person appointment, we certainly make sure that happens. We've returned, in fact, as of Monday to our all staff meeting. It is now in person, so that was Monday. And now we do weekly staff updates every Friday, and I think you all know that. I do kind of a weekly update just to make sure folks know what's going on within HHS. So next slide. Another priority area was to improve our physical environment. And as we discussed, we are in the process of moving our Newport clinic to our Nye Street building. And I think you all know that I am aggressively looking for office space for the rest of our operations. And we have some good leads on that, and I will continue to work on that. And I guess improve physical environment. These were the strategies. Sorry, I got ahead of myself there. And so we, and then as we spoke earlier, we purchased the Waldport buildings as well. So, and then strategies for optimizing our financial health. We can go to the next slide. So we added, we reconfigured many of our financially oriented positions so that 2 of our staff handle contract management. We have an account analyst that works directly with our division directors to establish budgets, work on helping them keep up with an expenditure and revenue reports, and basically have just done some work to reconfigure our administrative positions to, I think, better support the operation of HHS. Prior, it was really hard for our division directors to know where they were on the financial map, but we have moved beyond that and we're in good shape in that regard. We have, as I think you all know, we have finally settled the Behavioral Health Resource Network conundrum, and the funding will start to flow, which will give us an opportunity to bring funding resources into the community, a total of $4.6 million overall to stand up substance use disorder system of care.
And this is Measure 110 money?
This is Measure 110 money.
Okay.
This money is specifically for un- and underinsured individuals. But my hope is to continue to work with the IHNCCO to see if we can do a similar track for folks who receive Medicaid. And then we worked with the finance department to hire an accounting firm to just sort of look at how we use Encode to see if we could use it more effectively so that we could track our expenditures, our revenues, and have ease of reporting, if you will. Again, back for our division directors and program managers. I'm sure you all know HHS gets millions and millions of dollars, but it doesn't come in one big block. It comes in myriad funding streams, and each of those funding streams have restrictions. And so really just the need to be able to use those funds for their intended purpose is really important to keep us out of trouble financially. But it also means we really have to have a very robust financial reporting and tracking system. Next slide. And so at this point, just our world has changed, right? The pandemic changed how we do business. A lot of what we set out to do, we've achieved. We're in the process of going through a new set of assessments. We're working regionally on a new health assessment. Internally, we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment. We're working on a climate change assessment relative to how climate change is affecting the health of the population. And so we feel that it's time to put this strategic plan to bed and then take advantage of the new information that's coming in and sort of our new world order and use that information to put together a new strategic plan for HHS. And
Do you have a timeline where you'd like to, for development and completion of the new plan?
I believe we'll want to work on that in 2023.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Are you ready for questions now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll open things up for questions.
I
Comments?
don't have any questions. I think it was a good plan when it was developed. I think it has proven to be a good plan by the results. And I look forward to, well, I may or may not be here to look forward to the next plan, but thank you for your hard work. And I think your leadership and Susan, certainly your heavy involvement in this process are part of what has made it so successful. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see the outcomes, the achievements, and this was a great plan at the time, and now it's time for a next level, next step. So great. Commissioner Jacobson.
Yeah, kind of same comments. It was sort of interesting. I remember when we were adopting that and all the meetings that were happening, and just so much has changed between that time and now. But I think that sometimes we can look back on the pandemic and find kind of those silver linings, and it did force us, I think, to work more in a remote environment. Things like, mobile healthcare was something that became really important. But also I think that COVID, again, this is on a positive note, COVID did provide some funding opportunities for public health that weren't there previously. And it's good to see that we have, taken advantage of those opportunities to propel ourselves forward, not just with COVID, but also with, ongoing things. It's really nice to see more, flu vaccine clinics that public health is doing, not just at our own office, but out everywhere in the community. And I think that's something that kind of sprung out of COVID vaccine clinics. There is some positive things, I guess, that maybe came out of the pandemic, or at least opportunities that we were able to leverage. And I agree with the other two commissioners. This was a good, solid plan when it was created, and then everything changed, and we did the best we could with it. And now it's time to retire it and kind of move forward with a new plan for where we're at now. So thanks.
Absolutely. And we have a report. We will send it to everybody who we still have contact with, who participated, and of course we'll post it on our website. And
Thank
I would
you.
just add, as they say, there are usually gifts in every problem.
Yeah.
Oh, very true.
And I feel like now maybe we can see some of those a little bit. It still was very hard, and I never want to do it again, but
Same here.
there's certain things that you can say, yeah, we did get some funding. We did make new media contacts. We did, more people know who public health is, and that's a good thing.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very
Thanks.
much. We move to public comment. If anybody online would like to offer public comment, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. Do we have anybody signed up in the room, Mr. Miller?
We do not.
Okay, and since the last meeting, we did receive one written comment through our smart sheet urging us to look at having electric vehicle charging stations be part of the Lincoln County Commons redevelopment. So that idea will be noted and passed along as we move forward with that project.
And we have no raised hands, Chair.
Okay, then I believe we are ready to wrap things up. Our next meetings will be next Monday and Wednesday, both at 10 a.m., both in person and live streamed. Monday meeting is our office staff meeting, and the Wednesday meeting is our regular Board of Commissioners business meeting. So until then,